Back at home, feeling misunderstood, and between these ears ain't nothing good.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be the first segment of Jonah's View from the Bench. So we have Jonah Mitchell. You heard him on a couple episodes ago of the podcast. If not, go back and listen to that podcast because that was a fun time. But we're going to have a quick little blurb here for the center of attention, and then you'll be able to catch the full video on our YouTube channel about a 20-minute conversation. So Jonah, let's introduce what this month's topic is.
So this one is about something I deal with for a lot of my clients, but just a lot of people in general who talk about getting started on a fitness journey and the struggles they kind of deal with. So I basically called this little segment "You're Lifting Wrong," and I did that for a couple of reasons. One, I have learned based off of my own experiences that what we think we know about fitness isn't always true, because a lot of times we heard one thing years ago, we read something on the internet, and then we just kind of took that as truth. We never really thought about it and how it could fit into our own life. So we kind of take things and run with them. Again, basing off of my own experience. And two, a lot of people get into fitness for the wrong reasons. And not to say that having a goal is bad, but we perceive that once we achieve said goal, we'll be fully happy. In reality, the journey, again, that's very cliche. The journey is where we where we see the results, where we see the overall progress, and how we can connect the dots. That it isn't just when I lose 50 pounds or when I get to a certain spot. Does that all make sense, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think it goes along with what because we're still doing that challenge. And you mentioned the yo-yo diet, where you diet and you get to the point where you want, but then you don't want to do the diet anymore. So then you go back, and it's just kind of a constant cycle. So there's got to be something. It's definitely learning what I have on this little journey that we've done. It's definitely better if you do it habitually instead of just trying to change something right away.
Exactly. So one, you're starting to look real lean, by the way. I'm seeing the muscles pop through that long sleeve. I love it. But so I'll get into the first part where the main thing of you're lifting wrong really comes from. So we get into fitness, we played sports, or we just kind of read one thing, we start running with it, and we could have seen results that way. What determines you're successful is based off of you, right? But like you mentioned, you said with yo-yo dieting, you do a diet, you get to a goal, then you stop doing the diet, you go back to where you started. Is that truly success? So when people are working out and they're like, I want to lose 50 pounds, I want to look like Superman, I want to do all these things, like they go into their fitness with a perception of, I have to be miserable, I have to sweat, I have to run every single day, I have to basically stop eating. And all these perceptions of what true success is brought on by these false notions that, like, okay, like to be successful, I have to suffer, which fitness is a form of suffering, but it's not something that you should resent. You know what I mean? And it's also not something that you should, like, if you're not seeing progress, you shouldn't be like, okay, I'm not sweating enough, I'm not running enough, I'm not, like, it doesn't always have to be physical. And I talked about this on my story the other day, is your intent when you exercise or do anything for your goal is where you see the most success, and that's through the process. You know what I mean? So when I prescribe a workout program to someone, it's very similar movements for an extended period of time. The point of that is to master those movements, and when we master those movements, we unlock new neural pathways to our body that we weren't connected to before, because we just kind of take the movements and run. We squat 100 times, but we don't feel like our glutes or our hamstrings or our quads activate. We just sit up and down, until it takes you 3 to 5 weeks to truly feel your muscles activate. And then you understand, like, okay, I can start unlocking different pieces of this movement. People look at that and say, oh, I get bored really easily, and I don't know, my heart rate isn't up, I don't feel like I got a good workout in because I'm not sore the next day. And all these like false perceived notions of what it means to get a good workout in or be successful in your workout is something they learned when they were a kid, and their high school coach said, if you're not sweating, you're not working hard, or if you're not sore, you didn't get a good workout. And then we carry this on into adulthood, and so we try to push ourselves, we try to get to the point where we're super sore, or we're just going through the motions that we learned, and then it's just like we find that we don't have the same performance as we used to, and like we don't have the same relationship with pains. The soreness kind of halts us in certain areas, or we keep seeking out that soreness and we cause more damage and we end up getting hurt. So it all comes back to the intent of what you're doing for your exercise. You know what I mean? We have these external goals. We want to lose 50 pounds, we want to feel better, we want to look better. But really understanding that once you get there, you're supposed to ask, how do I keep going? And then your intent with your workout starts to be more like, okay, instead of just mindlessly going through these movements, how do I master these movements? How do I get good at these movements? Because I know these are going to get me to my goal. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more that goes into it than just what we were taught when we were lifting. Like getting underneath a heavy weight is good and it has its place, but it definitely isn't the full thing. So if you're listening on the episode now, you'll miss the rest of the conversation. But be sure to check out the YouTube video, because Jonah and I are going to keep talking, and he's going to expand on this a little bit more. So what do you think? Because I did notice that in the workout regimen is that it's just basically just a lot of repetition, which is fine because I do work well in a routine. But how did you kind of figure that was the best way to kind of get people back into lifting, and especially lifting the right way?
So I came across that with my own kind of understanding, right? I got out of football 3 years ago, and I had this perception I knew everything of when it came to fitness because of my own experience. Because my ego through sports was like, okay, I'm the heaviest, I can lift the heaviest, I can lift heavier than anyone in the room. So that makes me more successful than everyone around me. When I didn't see the bigger picture of what happens when strength is there, but mobility and flexibility are not. When we are not connected to our body, we are not aware of our body. You know, our bodies are amazing and very adaptive things that we learn to kind of forget about. We learn to not listen to how our body communicates with us. It can't speak English. It won't say, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Like, chill out. It's going to
Stop it. Get the bar off my back. Get the
yeah,
bar
exactly.
off my
It won't do that, especially when you're like, no, I'm going to squat this 405 because I'm a badass and I have all my friends around me and I need to do this. You know, doesn't care
Yeah,
that.
I put Van Grohl behind me so I couldn't drop it.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't care. We don't listen to our knees are coming in because our glutes aren't strong enough to support that weight. It doesn't listen to that our hips lack the mobility, so our chest falls forward and we lose all core stability and our low back starts taking over in these movements. We don't listen to the fact that our ankles are so immobile that our knees are taking the brunt of the movement, and so we get knee pain, and then we blame our knees for it when we're dysfunctional all over the place. So after I got out of football, after I had someone expose all of these things to me, my eye was blown. I was never so humbled than that moment where she asked me to do a body weight squat, and I couldn't squat down to parallel. I could barely get to like 45 degrees. And she told me exactly why. And that's when it opened my mind that what we think we know is wrong. We can have a really good foundation. I mean, not to take anything away, like, yes, we did something. Like we could have developed a good relationship with fitness, but a lot of people don't develop a good relationship with fitness because they don't see why. You know, they just do it. The intent is to just go, and it's not to perfect. It's not to make this sustainable. And sustainability is built through intent. So if you go up under a bar and your program is like, okay, now I'm going to squat 405 because I've trained to this point where my body is mobile and flexible enough to control this, and now I'm more stable, that's 405 is going to feel the best it's ever felt. because you took the time to listen to your body and you realigned your intentions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and just thinking, just kind of going through like personal examples in my head, there's definitely, I would never really feel like I would obviously feel like I was strong enough to bump up weight, but I would bump up weight because in my head, I'd be like, okay, I've been squatting 375 for the past couple weeks. It's about time that I should be able to start squatting a little bit more. Um, and we talked about it when you were on the podcast fully. Coaches, the strength and conditioning coaches that we have during school, they do a good job for what they're supposed to do. It's quick turnaround. They're not really there to break down everybody's technique and start over. So it's not a fault on them, but there's definitely a lot more that goes into it. And I mean, judging by your story, the squat is basically the exercise that you can kind of, it's the one exercise that uses all of these different things. And then it's the best way to teach somebody that this is this exercise, but it also applies when you're doing curls. If you want to get the best muscle activation on your arms, or bench press muscle activation in your chest, it does. I mean, it makes sense. I just wanted to point that out. Like, we're not shaming the coaches that we've had. We definitely, I mean, I love Steve's, still love Steve's, and Coach Van Grohl was nice. They're good motivators, but they're not there to teach you how to lift. They're there to make sure that you lift what you should be, quote unquote, lifting.
Exactly. Like you said, like they did really good at their job, get us strong, because that's what transfers to the field perceptually or conceptually, not perceptually. But in reality, again, this is all in hindsight. Like at the time, like we don't know. Like we just want to be we're in a physical sport, so we have to be strong. And function isn't necessarily the biggest focus. But because of strength and constantly adding weight and this percent, like we only had an hour to get like 50 people through a workout. So rest time was not a thing.
No, and then we started doing supersets with everything, so we never actually rested.
Yeah. So like then that creates another perception of working out, that it has to be this hustle and struggle, that you have to be like walking to get a good workout, you have to crawl out of the gym. And these are all false signs of progress. When we can really realign, and to kind of go back to your question of why I thought like this repetitive nature is more successful, because when we get into a focus, like we focus on exactly why we're doing the movement, and we can perfect it with each week, then we see way more progress than if I was just telling you to keep adding a plate. You know, especially if you're not stable enough to add the plate, you're way more likely to get injured. Constantly repeating these movements are going to increase your capability, your strength, and just your overall performance. So that the foundation, which this program I have you on it's so foundational. But because it's so foundational, everything I build on top of that for you is able to get the maximum amount of benefit. So the people who like to jump from program to program because they're bored, is because their head's not in the right space. They want to move, they want to feel their heart rate, they want to feel like they did something, because they're crawling out of the gym because they don't know why. They're just moving to move. They have this perception that I to get skinny, I have to run, I have to die in the gym. When in reality, all our body does is what we tell it to do. It will adapt. Whether you're conscious of it or not, you could have all the best intentions in the world, but if you're telling your body that we're going to stress it out with crazy high impact fitness, like that stress is going to say, all right, well, you want to lose weight, you want to get lean, screw you. You're making me stressed out. I think you're going to die, so I want to store body fat for later. You know, it's so hard to break people's habits. It's so hard to kind of tell them that what they're doing is essentially wrong. And I don't mean wrong like they have no idea what they're doing. I mean wrong with what they really want. You know, they want to achieve a goal, but they don't know how, so they just go with zero strategy. And results comes from an intelligent strategy and consistency. So in the programs I create, I give you the strategy, I give you the consistency, and the results come over time. But you have to know why you're doing that. Otherwise, it's not what you're used to. So you're going to immediately look for the next thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's beneficial for younger athletes or athletes who are still playing in college, like what you're talking about with the flexibility. Yeah, looking good and being all jacked up and being able to lift a whole bunch of weight is fine, but I honestly, when I was the strongest, that's when I got hurt the most doing the agility and the running and stuff that we had to do. Like I strained my hamstring 2 years in a row because I was just focusing on getting bigger and stronger, never focusing on mobility or flexibility or anything like that. And who knows what that could have done for my performance. So I think that that's a huge thing, along with the you're lifting wrong. Take into account that fitness is not just lifting. Fitness is lifting, flexibility. There's a lot that goes into your mind. That's what I'm learning on your program too. Mindset is huge in fitness as well. But there's so many things that go into this one goal that we have. Don't try and sprint to the goal and then forget about everything else, because what goes back to what we talked about at first. If you do that, you're going to end up back at the place that you started because you didn't set any of the posts that you needed to when you're making what you wanted to achieve.
Exactly. Exactly, man. It's like you said, that sprint to the goal, because like I'm 50 pounds overweight. I want to be 50 pounds. I want to lose that 50 pounds in the next 3 months. But in reality, you got to that 50 pounds over the last 3 years. So think of it like you may need to put another 3 years in to get back to where you're at, because what you were doing before doesn't serve you, and what you think you do know isn't going to be the most sustainable way. It's going to you have to look in the mirror and say, what am I not doing? Why have I gotten to this point? And then it helps to have someone with another pair of eyes to come in and say, hey, these things are areas that you really struggle with. You need to correct those. And when you correct those, then you see the results. But it's one, we don't like to put blame ourselves. That's our nature. We don't like being told we're wrong or we're doing something wrong. We don't like to admit that we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of it is that's what holds people back, I think. The lack of diverging from what they think they know, when in reality they're in a spot that isn't serving them.
Right. It's definitely, you got to kind of look at yourself first and then go from there. Is there any final thought that you wanted to leave people for this month in this kind of talk that we've been having about lifting wrong? Is there any final thoughts that you wanted to leave people with?
The only thing I want to leave people with is that everything I've learned is from my own failures. So when I say like you're lifting wrong or any of this stuff, like what you think you know is wrong, it's all lessons I learned from my own failures, from my own shortcomings. And once I was able to have those exposed to me, and once I was able to start working and correcting those, that's where I saw the peak of my results. And that's exactly what I help people do, is point out these areas that are giving you problems, give you the right ways to fix them, and then based on my own knowledge, my own experience, and then I show you the way that you can maintain it. Because honestly, success is once you achieve a goal and you can sustain that goal, and then you can tweak it thereafter. The goal isn't to get there and then, all right, I'm done. It's more like you get there, cool. How is this a part of my life now? And sustainability is the most important thing to me, more than anything else. Like I don't want to be right. I just want to help you win. So that's all I want to know, is that everyone has their own way of doing things. And it's not just cookie cutter, cut and dry, like everything works for everybody. But I learn based off my own failures, and I want to make sure people don't fail as often as I did.
Yeah, Jonah knows what he's talking about, guys. That's all of this you're lifting wrong. It might seem egotistical, but it definitely is something that he learned himself. And if you want to learn about the ways that he was failing, like I said, go back, listen to the episode that he was on, because we have a good conversation about that. Jonah, where can people get in contact with you if they do kind of want to take this journey and get in better shape?
Awesome. Yeah. So on Instagram, that's where I'm mainly active. It's Jonah Mitchell _fitness, 2 L's in Mitchell. And then I'm on Twitter, not very active on Twitter, but you follow me on there at Jonah M Fitness, and then Facebook, just Jonah Mitchell. And then if you want to just send me a direct email, jonah@jonahmitchellfitness.com. That's any questions, thoughts, you shoot my way, and I'll do my best to help you.
Yeah, be sure to take advantage of it, and it's definitely good stuff. So if we have people that are listening or watching to this that want to take the next step, kind of get in shape, be sure to check Jonah out, because there's a lot of people that would just tell you what they want you to do. Jonah's going to work with you to try and get you to that goal. So thank you for doing this, and we'll get your views from the bench next month as well.
Appreciate it, brother.